India's energy ties are back in the global spotlight, this time at the center of a sweeping new trade agreement with the United States. Washington claims New Delhi has committed to walking away from Russian crude oil in a move that helped unlock sharply lower tariffs on Indian exports. But the data, the timelines, and the geopolitics tell a more complex story. On Monday, US President Donald Trump announced a landmark trade deal with India, cutting tariffs on Indian goods to 18% from 50%. Those tariffs had included a 25% punitive levy tied directly to India's continued purchases of Russian crude oil. According to President Trump, Prime Minister Narendra Modi assured him that India would stop buying Russian crude and instead shift toward energy imports from the United States and potentially Venezuela.
India committed to not only no longer purchasing Russian oil, but buying oil from the United States, also perhaps from Venezuela too, which we know will now have a direct benefit on the United States and the American people.
Interestingly, India has maintained official silence on the issue, with no public confirmation or denial from officials or ministers on any commitment to completely halt purchases of Russian crude oil. But on ground and in the markets, India's energy shift is proving to be more gradual than absolute. According to data from global trade analytics firm Kepler, India's crude oil imports from Russia have declined but not disappeared, and there seems to be little possibility of a complete shift anytime soon. Russian crude made up 38% of India's crude oil imports in November. By January, that share had fallen to 22%, even as India's overall oil imports rose. In volume terms, Russian imports dropped to about 1.16 million barrels per day, their lowest level in nearly 3 years. Kepler adds that India's energy dependence on Russia is unlikely to reduce anytime soon. Russian crude oil supplies for the next 8 to 10 weeks are largely secured, with cargo deals finalized. Even realists in the U.S. realize this.
There could be some problems down the line. For example, if President Trump, is expecting India to cut off the Russian oil imports completely by a certain time, and India maybe has a different understanding.
The reason India cannot wean away immediately is simple: energy security and economics. Russian crude, particularly Urals, remains discounted and well suited to India's complex refining system. A rapid disengagement, experts warn, would be commercially difficult and politically sensitive. Moscow is already pushing back on Washington's narrative. On Tuesday, Kremlin said that Russia had not heard any statement from India about stopping oil purchases, stressing on the fact that Russia would continue developing ties with India in every possible way. So what comes next? Kepler says while the trade deal is unlikely to cut Russian oil volumes in the near term, it may reshape marginal flows. US crude is emerging as the biggest beneficiary and may rise to 10% of India's oil imports, replacing not Russian oil but West African grades. Venezuelan crude may return in limited, opportunistic volumes but not as a long-term alternative. Bureau Report, Business Today TV.
If you like the video, do like, comment, share and subscribe.